Hello, I'm Ollie, and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, horror, I'm doing a review of You've Lost a Lot of Blood by Eric LaRocca. So I'm going to start by talking about two things, both of which I think are abundantly obvious. The first one is that this is a fantastic cover. I don't normally talk too much about the covers of books unless they're wonderfully trashy old paperbacks. So yeah, modern book covers I don't tend to talk about too much, but I really, really like this cover. And I similarly really like the cover of Larocco's, I think it was his last book, Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, which I think was probably by the same artist. I haven't checked that, but that had a similar kind of eerie, disquieting feel to it. There's something about this cover that just kind of gets under your skin in a way I really like, and it is representative of the contents of the book as well, I would say. And the other thing is, I also think the title is fantastic. So I really like the title of his last book as well. Things Have Got Worse Since We Last Spoke. I think it's a really interesting and intriguing title. It's the sort of title that sucks you in. And the same with this one. I think this is a fantastic title too. Now, that's where the similarities between the two books end, because I didn't actually like Things Have Gotten Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke that much. I thought it was okay. I thought it was fine. But I didn't think it deserved quite as much praise as it got. And so if you don't know, so that book is a weird horror book, much like this one, told as a series of kind of online conversations between these two women who have this strange sadomasochistic relationship. And it gradually gets more and more weird as it goes on. And what I liked about that book was a lot of the writing, I think, is strong. I think he had some really interesting ideas in the book. And the voices of the two women I thought were quite convincing. And there was definitely some eerie, gross bits as well. And I thought that it spoke quite intelligently about obsession and compulsion and things like that. Where I didn't like it so much was it felt to me like half a book. So it builds up and builds up and builds up. But then I found that what it builds up to felt like a bit of a letdown, and it felt like it needed to go further. So for me, it felt like he could have done more with it, and it was a short book, a lot shorter than this. It was, I would say this is a short novel, whereas the last book was a novella. So yeah, it just felt like there wasn't quite enough to it. This, I think, addresses a lot of the problems I had with the first book. So it feels much more complete as a book. There is, for a start, it's thicker, but it just feels like there's that little bit more to it, and it goes a bit further and feels more fully developed and rounded in terms of the story that it's telling. So it feels like the last book kind of just left me hanging a bit, whereas this feels, I didn't get that feeling with this. It feels complete. So this is the story of a serial killer called Marta Black, and particularly his relationship with another guy who becomes an accomplice of his. And it's told like Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. It's told in an interesting way. So in here you get a number of different kind of formats to the storytelling. So there are diary entries. There are like poems that the killer has written. There are transcripts of like conversations that have been recorded between him and his boyfriend, and the bulk of the book is taken up with a reprinting of a novella he wrote, which is also called You've Lost a Lot of Blood. And it all hangs together really, really well. And what impressed me most about it was how well it comes together at the end. So as you are reading it, it's all really interesting, and you feel like each different bit gives you a different insight into Marta Black's mind. And the way it's kind of spaced out is you get like a diary entry or or one of these conversations, and then you get a couple of chapters of the novella, and then you get another diary entry or what have you. So it's nicely broken up, and it works. It really works beautifully, and I really enjoyed the different the very different styles of the writing. So some of it is purely just conversations, but the novella has a wonderfully pulpy feel to it. So the novella that's contained within is about this woman who's a software developer, who's got a young brother, and she goes to this kind of mansion in the middle of nowhere to work on this experimental new video game for this kind of enigmatic video game designer. And what happens when she's there gets more and more weird and threatening as the book goes on, and it ends up being, and this isn't really a spoiler, ends up being a quite a kind of body horror type tale. It reminded me a bit of like David Cronenberg or the movie Tetsuo the Iron Man. It's got that kind of feel to it. And then around that story, you've then got these, which is written by the killer. You've then got these other texts and conversations and things like that, which just add to the richness of it. And it's a puzzle in the way that mysteries that I enjoy are. It's a puzzle as you work through the book of you trying to piece the different bits together and figure out what's going on in his mind and what's led him to do, to commit the horrible crimes he's committed. So yeah, it works. It works very, very well. And as I say, I was much more impressed with it than I was with Things That Got Worse Since We Last Spoke. I think it is a very fresh and interesting new horror novel, and it's got a wonderful kind of feeling of the uncanny about it. So as well as being, kind of a serial killer novel, it's got this sense of, you get this sense, particularly through the novella in it, of seeing into this guy's mind in a way that is really quite chilling. So I found the whole thing, fascinating. And there's obviously I won't tell you what it is, but there is a twist at the end, which is absolutely brilliant. And it makes the whole book even better than it was already. So yeah, it's a fun read. And the novella, as I say, is quite gory and has quite a pulpy feel to it, which I thoroughly enjoyed because I like that kind of thing anyway. But then to have that then wrapped up in something a bit deeper and more serious, I thought worked very well. So it definitely comes with a recommendation from me. I enjoyed it very, very much, and I think horror fans out there will like it too. If you're not a horror fan, it may be a bit much. It's definitely quite graphic and unsettling in places, but it's a very interestingly put together book. There is one thing I didn't like about it actually, which is there are a few bits in the conversation, like the recorded conversations between the killer and his boyfriend. There are a few bits where they get into discussing popular culture, and those bits never last that long, but I just found them really jarring because they get very specific. They talk very specifically about certain films in a way that just felt, it's probably natural in that we, people do that in conversation, but in the contents of the book, it just pulled me out of the book a little bit. So that's the one thing I wasn't keen with. But other than that, I thought it was a very good read. So if you do like the sound of it, I'll put links in the description to places you can buy it. If you click those links, you'll be able to buy it for the normal price, but I'll get a small affiliate fee, which is very nice, and it helps with the running of the channel and the buying of all these books. So yeah, much appreciated if you do use my links to buy books. That is always greatly appreciated. But clearly, if there's other places you can get it cheaper or whatever, then feel free to use those instead. So yeah, as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this. If you've read this book, do let me know. Hope you are all safe and well. Hope you read good stuff, and I will speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.